Good morning, everybody. My name is Heather, and I work as a learning developer in the Study Skills team at the University of Liverpool. In this session today, we're going to look at how to prepare for in-person exams. So what are these types of exams actually looking for? Well, they're going to want you to demonstrate a good understanding of a topic. So it's not just about having a good memory and memorizing information. It's about applying your knowledge rather than just repeating it. So you'll need to be clear about what the question is asking and engage critically with it. This will involve drawing out links and relationships between different bits of information that you have studied. The best way to get prepared for your exams is to create a study plan and choose active rather than passive revision techniques within your study slots. The next few slides will discuss this in a bit more detail. So these are some things you're going to want to consider when putting together a study plan. Often students put together plans that are unrealistic and therefore they don't really stick to them. So considering some of these factors should help eliminate that issue. So first of all, thinking about how many exams do you have? When are they? How spread out are they? This will allow you to work backwards from the exam dates and ensure you fit in enough time to cover the topics needed. What are the main topics that might come up in each exam? Looking back over what you've studied over the past couple of years, and also thinking about what comes up in past papers will help you identify these topics. How confident do you actually feel in these different topics currently? So you might find it useful to rate your confidence. So for example, if you rate your confidence as 1, that means you're not feeling great about this topic, and if you were to go into the exam, you don't feel like you could answer a question on that currently. If you rate your confidence as a 5, that means that you're feeling confident and you'd feel ready to answer something about that particular topic. This means that it's not necessarily going to be the case that you divide up your time equally. It might well be that you have to spend more time on some topics than others to get your confidence up in those. Also think about when you are most productive. So for example, if you're someone who's more productive in the morning, it would be helpful for you to dedicate that time to studying the topics that you find most tricky and the most demanding on your time. What else do you need to consider? So we all have other things going on in our lives. You're not going to be able to revise every single hour of the day. Putting those other things into your plan makes it more realistic and easier for you to stick to. Even putting in things like eating and exercising is important. And be flexible. Have some blank slots in there. It might well be that some topics take longer than expected for you to cover, so then you'll have the flexibility to fit that in. Putting together a physical study plan can be helpful. Colour coding it can also be useful so you can see when you are dedicating time to different aspects of your study. For example, here you can see different topics. You can see that I've put in slots for part-time work, slots for eating, slots for exercising. So it's a realistic study plan that you should be able to stick to. There's also some blank slots in there to allow for that flexibility aspect which we talked about. Within the slots that you've designated for studying, you need to make sure that you're using a technique that is active. Active techniques involve your brain having to process or remember something. They require your brain to actually engage with the topic or information. Passive techniques, on the other hand, can be easily forgotten and they involve little engagement or processing. So you'll want to find some active techniques that work well for you, and you might find that different techniques work well for different topics. Some examples on here, you've got writing flashcards. This really requires you to summarise and pick out the key points of information, which is an important technique to be able to do. It can also be used for friends and family to test you on a topic. Making mind maps can be helpful for you to see an overall picture. Think about how all the different subtopics relate to each other. Explaining a topic to others can also be useful. Setting up study groups where you revise certain aspects of a topic can be helpful for you to process the information. However, do make sure that you set some ground rules, you're clear about what you're going to be studying, and you try and study in a place that sort of enhances your productivity. And practice questions or past papers are some of the best things that you can do. This really encourages you to put your knowledge into practice. See if you can actually answer the questions, and if there's any bits that you're struggling with, this should identify gaps in your revision, which you can then slot into future study plans. On the passive side, things like reading or typing out or copying all your notes aren't particularly active, so they don't really require much engagement from your brain. Also, highlighting can be quite controversial. Some people really do like highlighting, and when used in conjunction with another technique such as mind maps or flashcards, it can be helpful. But simply highlighting a big page of notes can often be counterproductive, as you often end up highlighting nearly everything on the page. Before the exam, make sure you're clear about when it is, where it is, and ensure you know what materials you can take into the exam with you. For example, if you're doing a maths exam, can you bring in your calculator? Try and switch off the night before, relax, have a good night's sleep, and make sure you have a good breakfast in the morning of the exam, as there's nothing worse than sitting in an exam hall hungry. When you're in the exam, make sure you do read through the whole exam, so flick through it before you answer any questions so that you know how the marks are distributed, and you can make sure you spend enough time on the questions that give you the highest number of marks. If you see a question that you think is easy and you know how to answer it, answering that first can help you give you a bit of a confidence boost for answering the others. So there's often no reason why you can't answer questions in a different order from what they're in on the paper. Do attempt every question. So even if you do run out of time, put down some bullet points or write out some formulas that you would have used. And if you do get stuck, move on, attempt something else and come back to it later on. At the end, do try and save some time for proofreading, but you can check that you've actually answered the question and you've not made any silly mistakes. So good luck in your exams, and I hope your revision and your exams themselves go really well. Thanks very much.